Welcome to Founders Unplugged, hosted by Greg McCallum. Long-form, honest conversations with founders and entrepreneurs from around the world.
Yeah, well, I'm Elisabetta. I'm very Italian, as you can hear from my accent, from my name, from my look, perhaps. I was born and raised in Italy in a small town in the middle of nowhere, in the center of Italy. 11 years ago, took the leap of faith and moved to the UK. Lived in the UK for 2 years, then moved to Spain, then moved back to the UK. But here I am working different sectors, corporate, startups, started in product, moving to sales, but finally actually founded my own company, which is a recruitment agency, Mint and Lemon, focused on helping startup founders attracting the right talents. So here, who I am in a very nutshell.
Excellent. And we've obviously spoken quite a few times before, so we've gotten to know each other. So I'm going to ask you questions that I already know the answers to some of them, but others not.
I might surprise you.
You might surprise me, exactly. You definitely will, because there's no way that we know everything about each other. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So yeah, tell me more about the recruitment agency first, and then I've got a ton of other questions about other things. But why recruitment agency? I mean, especially given your career path, why did it end up there? And also, why recruitment agency specifically for startups? Why not sort of just more broadly for corporate or enterprise?
Yeah, 100%. That's a very good question that a lot of people ask me. So how did you get into recruitment? I was like, yeah, it's a very interesting story. So, well, in my last startup, especially, I was one of the founding member. I was employee number 6. I little by little, it started from a one-woman show, sales, and then little by little, I built the whole sales department, then eventually added the sales and the customer success department. But my main struggle was always attracting and getting the right people. Not only the right people when it comes to sales, but also the right people when it comes to like the startup environment. And we all know that startup employees are very different from corporate employees. And it was always a struggle. We work with different agencies, but no one could really understand what we exactly needed. And that's why at the end, I was literally poaching myself candidates. I was literally doing the whole agency, basically recruitment process myself. And then eventually, of course, finishing the whole process as head of the department. So I always had that struggle. I always also wanted to have my own business. That's why, like little by little, at the end of last year, I started thinking, okay, maybe I should actually maybe get my own business. But I didn't know what exactly I could do. Then, it all started from my struggle. And I thought, okay, why not actually doing something specifically on those go-to-market roles and as well as tech roles. But also, I always loved like working with startup founders, because I believe that startup founders are the ones that dare to dream and dare to actually do something that it's much harder than, than maybe what other people would like to do. So I always wanted to work with them and to try to support them somehow. And I thought, okay, why not supporting them by giving them the right people? And of course, your people is the biggest asset that you can have as a company. So I thought, okay, that's the best way for me to support startup founders. And that's how everything started and officially launched in beginning of March. And here we are I think 6 months after. It's been an interesting journey so far.
Yeah, tell me more about that. So why has it been an interesting journey? What's happened? I already know some of it, but I want to hear it from you.
I think people are never ready until you actually do it. And so I've been warned that, it would be hard. You would have days that you would cry, that things will not be so smooth and there would be failures and everything. So I had a really good prep session on that side, also for my previous CEO and previous founders that I know. But once you get into the job, it's a completely different ballgame altogether. But that's the beauty of it as well. So of course, there's been a huge learning process for me, but I really took it as every failure, everything that perhaps I did wrong, that I thought I could have done so much better. I took it as a proper learning process. And I try also not to be too hard on myself, because I'm really usually very hard on myself. I'm a bit of a perfectionist since I was a kid. I was always okay, you need to get, best marks, best of this, best of that, best of that. But again, failure, I really embrace failure and took it as a part of the journey, and really as, okay, this didn't go well, but what did I learn from it and how can I do it better next time? So it's a different mindset compared to actually what I've done in the past. And it really helped me, and really helped me in embracing really the journey.
That what you said about embracing failure is quite an interesting thing, because you have to have a pretty healthy relationship with failure as a business owner or an entrepreneur, right? Like how, I mean, for someone that, like you said, maybe as a young adult or a kid was like, I've got to get the best marks, I've got to get that, like, was that quite a difficult pill to swallow?
It was, but actually it started quite early for me, because
Okay.
when I was a kid, I always had best marks and everything. But then when I went into university, my marks were not the best of the class. So
Right.
that
Okay.
for me took a hit already. I was like, hold on, I'm not the best of the class. Like, why? But then I started thinking like, okay, I actually don't have to. Like, whoa, what am I doing it for? Anyway, I'm passing the exams, I'm getting my degree. So what's the worst that can happen? So then I started embracing actually that type of mindset. And then again, like, when I start actually getting to the proper, like, world where actually you have to work, you have to apply for jobs. Oh, like, I mean, the rejection that I used to have. I did literally today actually a post on LinkedIn about rejections. The rejection that I used to have, like, I used to send 100 applications per day. No one would even reply to me. That's even a worse rejection.
That's
because
pretty
literally
humbling. Yeah.
people don't even like talk to you, like zero. Don't even say, okay, we're done with you or something like that. I used to go into interviews, no one would give me feedback, nothing. So it was pretty hard. But again, that's the real world. Like, I think sometimes school doesn't prepare you for actually what the real world is, and tells you that sometimes you always need to get the best of the marks and everything, and then somehow then you'll succeed in real life. School smart is very different from work smart or anything you want to call it, or street smart or anything. And you need to kind of realize it quite quick, adjust quite quick, and understand that what you learn in school, perhaps it's something completely different from actually how the real world operates. At least that was my experience. Other people might have a very different experience. But yeah, I realized it quite quickly, and I pivoted quite quickly.
Yeah. Ideally, school should be teaching people how to learn at the very least, not necessarily what to learn. But sometimes
Like,
it doesn't always do
practical,
that.
like
Right.
being practical. I feel like I learned so much theory, but there was never like a practical angle. I mean, in some schools, some years, like, of course it was not all like that. So some areas of what I learned and everything actually was really practical, and I think that was gold for me. Some areas was like literally repeating exactly line by line what the book told you, without even giving you an interpretation of it. And I think that was the worst teaching methods like I could ever experience.
Yeah, I was talking about this actually with my mum, of all people, last night when we were catching up, because she turned 70 yesterday. And we
Happy
end up
birthday.
thanks. And much like this podcast, we end up just, whenever I talk to my mum, we end up just talking about all kinds of crazy shit. And we started talking about that, funny enough, about school, and about how, yeah, it's just, it teaches, what they're teaching you is how to pass the exam. That's all they're teaching you, really, because if it's in their interest that they have high passing rates, so that they get their next funding, and that's it. That's their game, right? So it's I mean, like I said, not all schools. I'm sure there are other ones that don't work like that, but yeah, it's not a place for intelligent people, as Rick from Rick and Morty once said. So why did you move to England in the first place? You mentioned like you went Spain, here. You've kind of been around the place. What brought you to England first?
That's a good question. So I don't know, I was always attracted to the UK somehow, to London. You see London in the movies, and it's like, oh my God, that's the place to be. And I think as an Italian, you have like London and the US. The US is
Really?
literally
Is that a thing in Italy?
Yeah.
Really?
The
Because for the
US
rest
is
of the world, it's like Italy.
No, you see how, what is the paradox of it,
Yeah. The grass is always
but
greener,
no,
right?
the grass is always greener. You see it, especially the US, as, oh my God, that's literally your North Star, where everyone should be moving somehow.
Really? Okay.
And then you have also London, and so pretty, and always in the movies and everything. And which is so close yet so far away as a country and as a city. So I always somehow dreamt of London, especially because I was like, okay, if I want to move somewhere, I still would want to be close to my family. So not like, I don't know, like a 12 hours flight away from my family. So I always dreamt of that. And the first time like I've visited London was when I was 18. At that time as well, I didn't speak any word of English. And I was like, wow, what is this? Like, it's so amazing. I never felt, and I traveled a lot, especially with my family when I was a kid and everything, but I never experienced a place where I felt home somehow, where I didn't feel that was a vacation. I felt like I could live in this country. I could actually be here. And the nature, I remember I was really impressed by the nature, by the smell of fresh air, but like everything. I was like, I want to be here somehow. I want to be here. But I always had that like barrier of language. And I remember I used to love, for example, like, of course, English songs, but I used to sing them and I didn't understand anything, of course. And I used to like, I don't know, muffle something. Like, it was horrible. It was embarrassing. I'll tell you that. Oh my God, thinking about it. And sometimes I listen to those songs after 10 years and now I understand the meaning. I was like, oh, how I was saying everything is so wrong. I was like, wow, this is bad. And I used to translate songs. I used to full on translate songs. And I was like, wow, this is it's complicated, basically. So I can't go on and like that. I used to translate books and everything, but I could not go on because, again, it's a level of English where you literally know what to say, like, hi, hello, how are you? That's it. Like, it was nothing more. So I was like, okay, let me study it a bit. But again, when you study like from another country, it's still not the same. So I was like, I think when I was 25, then I was like, okay, I might have the opportunity now to move. Let me send some applications. I was also sending some applications for other jobs in Milan, but let me send some applications. And I had 2 job offers for Milan, and I had 1 unpaid job offer for London. And of course, I took the unpaid one. And my parents like, "What are you doing? Like, are you sure?" I was like, "Yes, yes, yeah." And those 2 job offers for Milan were also like big international names, companies. So of course, like, in your CV would have looked like very, very well. But I was like, no, let me go for that. Let me go for the unpaid option. And the unpaid option turned out to be actually the like where my gut was telling me to go. Like, I felt like I was supposed to be there. And then nothing. Then I started my life in London. I started as an unpaid intern. Then I moved to retail. I work as a sales assistant, and then little by little, then I jump into corporate. But then I start also understanding, okay, maybe do I want to go back to Italy? Do I want to move back? Because again, I had a lot of rejection and a lot of barriers when it comes to actually finding like corporate jobs, because again, my English was not top notch, was not as a native. And at that time, especially, it was like from so many, like maybe companies was not seen as something, that you could hire somebody with that level of English. Well, understandably also, like, so yeah, well, so I was like, okay, should I move back to Italy? So I also did some application. I was in literally getting also like hired from some other companies in Italy, also big international brands, especially in the fashion world and everything. But then I was like, no, that's not the right thing. Like, I feel like my heart is here. So how can I continue my career here? And I keep pushing. So then I stayed 2 years in London. I actually moved to Spain randomly for 4 years and a half. I thought it would be like maybe 1-2 years, gig, but no, I say much more. And then moved back to London because, again, like, my heart was taking me to London.
Kept calling you back.
Somehow. And I was always visiting because, of course, I had friends here. So even when I was in Spain, I was always in Spain. I mean, Barcelona, especially, I used to live, is amazing. Like, you have, like, I had the beach like literally 10 minutes walking from my house. So that lifestyle and everything, it's great. Like, food is great, everything is great, But somehow I always felt like I need to come back to London because, of course, the tech startup environment, there's no comparison across the whole Europe. Of course, it might be different from the US, but that's where I felt like I belong. And then I was like, okay, let me come back. And then randomly one day I decided to leave Barcelona. I made 3 choices on that side. So I close, let's say, other stuff, and then I quit my job, I quit my flat, and then randomly a job opportunity actually came without me even applying. that's, sometimes you manifesting and you
Yeah.
put things in the universe, and things happen without you even realizing it. And then I moved back 2019, and then since then I'm here. I think it has been the best decision. I mean, I love Italy, love Spain, love everything, but I feel that here I have much more opportunities for myself and my professional life, and that's where I want to be.
What is it, do you think, about London that was calling you like that? Is it the people? Is it the places? Is it just the? Is it like you said? Is it just the startup scene itself? Like, what was it that made it so magical to you, especially so early on?
I think so. There is one thing about London, that you can never be bored. Like, you can't get bored in London. There is always something to do. There is always something going on, or something
You
to
see,
see.
I
or
like being bored sometimes.
How? Like, how?
Sometimes
I can't.
it's impossible, but I try. No.
I am jealous, Greg, because for me, like, I honestly can. Like, I feel like FOMO. I feel like if I'm getting bored, I feel like something is not happening. Like, growth is not happening. Something is not changing.
I saw a
It's
great
that
TikTok.
stagnation.
Right? Yeah, totally. But I agree with you. I mean, I'm my wife is constantly telling me off because I can't sit still. I've always got to find something, especially on holiday. We just went on holiday last week, and I'm just like, it's an all-inclusive resort. I can't sit down for 5 minutes. I'm like, I want to do something. Yeah,
It's nightmare for you.
Yeah. She but I probably have undiagnosed ADHD. But I saw a TikTok the other day that was brilliant. I'm not sure how true it is, and it's probably a little bit sexist, but fuck it. It said something along the lines of like, women are always looking for the next thing to do, whereas men are always doing something so they have the next opportunity to do nothing, which I thought was super interesting. Like,
That's interesting.
We're doing stuff so that we don't have anything else to do, and then we can sit down and go, everything's done.
I never thought about it. That's
Yeah.
interesting. But I always have something to do somehow.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Like, even in the house, if I see things, I start doing. Like, I
Yeah.
can't. Unless there is my partner there that he tells me, okay, let's maybe watch a movie. I'm like, okay, let's watch a movie. Otherwise, if I'm by myself, I would never watch TV. I would never watch movies.
Hi, a friendly reminder to share this episode with your network, like, and subscribe. And if you are feeling really supportive, please consider reviewing the show on the podcast platform of your choice. It all really helps support what we do. Thank you. Now back to the show.
paying Netflix only for my family to access to my account. That's it, literally. I don't actually go on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's just because I feel, and I think that's a problem, of course. If I stand still, I feel stagnation.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
of course is not the real thing. Like, I should also like allow my brain to shut down a bit, allow my brain to like just take a deep breath, which I don't. And I think
I don't know.
maybe
I wouldn't beat yourself up about that too much. I think it's so easy for us to spend so much time over analyzing ourselves. I mean, I can do this better. I could be better here. That I think it's sometimes better to embrace the way you are. And I'm not so sure that shutting people like us and entrepreneurs in general can really shut off. But I think at least having moments to be self-reflective are good. But that's still doing something, isn't it? It's still actively doing something.
That's also. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like I always need to be on the move, especially now that I have my own business. I feel even more guilty if literally I watch maybe like a 5 minutes on YouTube, a 5 minutes video on YouTube. Like, I just feel like, oh my God, I should not allow myself to take any minutes away from my business, because my business is my baby, of course. And if I don't care, then I don't take care of my baby, then the baby will die. I don't know. You go into the whole dramatic move.
No, I understand that 100%, and I don't think you're alone in feeling that way. But I think what I've found over the years of running various businesses now, and also just working at in highly stressful and very demanding jobs, is that I'll find if I'm starting to get sort of cloudy mind, where I'm getting overwhelmed with all the different things I have to do, and there's so many things to do and so many deadlines that I'm just kind of not doing a good job. I've learned to recognize that and go, okay, take 10 minutes. Yeah, I'm gonna look at some YouTube videos like you said, or play my computer game or whatever, or read a book. It's like I need to, because I know that actually that's going to make me better. If I do that, if I just unplug for a minute, and then I choose not to feel guilty about that because I know it's actually better around. So yeah, maybe, I don't
It's
know.
all about reframing that narrative.
Right, yeah, exactly. Like, it will get done, but maybe now isn't the best time. Maybe I'll do a better job later or tomorrow or something.
Yeah.
But going back to my question though, so about London, so just having the variety of things to do, that appeals to you, does it? But what about like the people and things like that? Like,
I think that's, the variety of things is the point one, but for me is the melting pot of people, because
Right.
especially like coming from a small town where everyone looks like you, everyone speaks like you. I mean, of course, I've been very privileged in growing up in that environment with that passport as well, with that background and everything. But I wanted to know more. I knew that the world was not just there. The world was not just, my country. I just felt there was so much more. There was so much more food that I wanted to try. There was so much more people I wanted to get to know, to experience, to understand cultural backgrounds and everything. And I could have never done that in Italy. But when it comes to London, I think you get the best melting pot of people, of cultures, of food, of like point of views, everything. And I thought like, wow, this is so inspiring. I discover a different self as well. Like I completely changed as well from where I was before I moved to London to after. And I kind of went through like a personal discovery, and I really found my true self that I felt it was a bit trapped before, and I never had the experience to actually get to know really my real self. And for me, it's been like a different life. I remember my friend used to tell me like, since I moved to London, I was like, wow. They were used to tell me like, wow, you seem like a butterfly that you came out of your kind of shell, and you're a completely different person now. You're also like, you look happier. And sometimes maybe you are in the right place, but maybe you're not in the right place. Maybe you just need to get exposed to a different environment to rediscover yourself.
environment's incredibly important, yeah, for sure. But that's super interesting because I don't often hear the story of someone who finds the allure of the big city. You don't hear that so much anymore. Like, that's kind of it's a very romantic story in some ways, isn't it? Like, that you had a romance with London, you had a long distance relationship with London, and then decided to do something about it. It's kind of
Always.
awesome.
Always. Also because I used to be so obsessed with Harry Potter. So I
Oh,
used to,
really?
I read all the
Yeah.
books and everything, watched the
Well, have you been to
movies.
Oxford?
I've been, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that's where I'm
yeah. And
from originally.
it's
Yeah, yeah.
I've been. No, it's amazing. Like, I mean, I even went to when I went to Scotland. I even went to actually see where exactly they filmed the movie, the shots of the movie with the bridge and everything. I was so obsessed with it. But I just felt like, wow, this is a different world, and I want to be part of it somehow. But it's only in the movie, so you think like, oh, that's not for me. Also, when I watched the Notting Hill movie, with Julia Roberts and everything, I always felt like, oh, this is a different world. But then I start being part of it, and I was like, how amazing! I'm just literally living my dream. And I still sometimes have to pinch myself to like say, oh, I live in this city. Like, I can call this city like my home. Like, I literally, you're right. Actually, I literally had a love affair with London without knowing it somehow. But and I know a lot of people wants to move to countryside and everything, and I think that's beautiful. Eventually, I'll probably move maybe more outside of London and everything, but I always want to be somehow connected to this city, because this is the city that is giving me actually a lot of possibilities and things that I could have never experienced otherwise. So for me, it's just, I don't know, it's surreal sometimes thinking that I live in this city. Like, I still need to pinch myself sometimes.
That's really beautiful to hear. I mean, it's just, and I think a really important thing for people from London and who live in London to hear, that it has that attraction to people still in the world. Especially given the current climate. With people talking about immigration and and the people's nationalities and the sort of division there. Like, I think it's important to hear, like, there are people around the world that have a deep desire to come and visit their cities, whether it's London, Paris, Barcelona, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, they're known throughout the world for a very good reason, and they're like a beacon of hope and possibility for people. So it's a good thing for people to hear. Absolutely. I think it's super cool. So,
And I think a lot of people also, yeah, and I know because every time I talk about that, I get a bit of a backlash basically saying, oh, but no, London has so many problems. And I was like, yeah, but like to me
everywhere has
personally,
problems.
yeah, everyone has problems. You need
Yeah.
to just pick whatever, no city is perfect, no place to live is
Yeah.
perfect. You just need to pick whatever works for you. And for me, I mean, I'm just so grateful for the opportunity this city gave me. I remember like first day I landed, I think I had some like after like a month or so I had to go to the doctor and everything also was so smooth, so like I don't know, I got my free medication and everything, and I think it was like a month I was here. I was like, wow, how, like, I felt like they feel I like they see me as somebody that belongs here before I see that. And I was like, how is that beautiful? Because I mean, it's a city that is so used to also like, having foreigners and everything. So they don't see you as somebody different. And I was like, this is beautiful. Like how,
Yeah. It's
how privileged I am.
Yeah, absolutely. It's how a city should be. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's something I've always been very proud of, I think, as, being British, in general, especially coming from Oxford, because Oxford's like a mini version of London. It's
So beautiful.
with foreign exchange students. And I grew up in a house full of foreign English students, people who were from all around the world learning English. I've talked about that on this show loads of times. And like, I was really lucky growing up like that. And it was interesting because then I started going to other parts of the world and the country, smaller towns and villages, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, like, so I thought everywhere was like that. You know what I mean? Because as a kid, I'm like, oh, so every place just has people from around the world. No, it doesn't. Like, it's actually very rare. So yeah, it's amazing. I'm really glad to hear that. Really, really am. I want to talk a bit about the business, but before I do, what was it like? You mentioned when you first came here, you didn't have really any English. How was that? How did you find that? Did you say you were studying English as well, or were you literally just self-taught?
I was trying, but like it's, you think you know some, then when you come into the country and literally the I don't know, you ask somebody at the bus stop here and then you don't understand anything and you're like, wow, you have a reality check like on another level, literally.
Yeah.
So you think you know something because maybe between your group of friends you're the person that understands that word or that word, but it's nothing compared when reality really hits
in
you.
some ways made more difficult because London is full of so many people from around the world, because of actually you're learning English from people who have also speaking English as a second language sometimes, right?
Actually, maybe for me, no, because
Okay.
I also made a very conscious effort at the beginning to literally spend most of my time with British people.
Right. Yeah.
Because my whole environment, I was just surrounded by British people. So the accent was that accent, which I know a lot of people think is the hardest to understand accent around so many accents, especially when I remember when I used to live in Barcelona and everything, my ex-colleagues were like, do you really understand the British accent? I was like, yeah, it's so easy. Like, what is the... Apparently, it's a bit hard to. So, Greg, you have a superpower, apparently. But no, I really made a conscious effort to not hang out with Italians, which was a big pain for me because, of course, you want to be surrounded by your comfort zone. But I consciously wanted to put myself out of my comfort zone, and also because if I only were surrounded by Italians, I knew I was not gonna learn actually English. So then I was like, okay, like let me put myself literally throw myself in the deep of the uncomfortable, and let me just hang out with people like actually that have the strongest accent that I can find around me. So actually that helped me, because again, I think also your everyday English is very different from your corporate English. So I actually started literally learning my corporate English. which I now lost my Italian corporate. So I can't write, I don't think I can write an email in Italian, I struggle a lot. Sometimes my family also makes fun of my Italian, like every time I talk, or as if I write on the family group, WhatsApp group, they're like, what are you talking about? Like, what is this word? Like, and I invent words apparently. Anyway, that's a struggle that you find. But yeah, so I think it made it harder at the beginning, but then easier throughout my career. But it was hard. I mean, it was really hard because I just didn't understand anything, especially even when I was like, I don't know, if you go to the supermarket, I remember like I was struggling even buy things because I was like, okay, maybe this bread, that's something that then when you go and eat it, it's like, oh, this tastes different from what I thought I bought actually. So then Well, I remember one thing actually. There is this what is that called? That juice that actually you need to dilute with water.
Oh yeah, squash. Yeah.
Yeah, the squash. I thought it was orange juice. So I was just drinking
Loads
like
of
that.
people do that.
And then my friend was like, no, you need to dilute it. I was like, why would you dilute like a juice? Isn't it just juice? She's like, no. And then
oh my god,
tasted,
the
I was like,
amount
what
of
is
sugar you must have been
bad.
drinking. Wow.
It's bad. So then you get lost in transition in a lot of different things. Even when you go buy something, like maybe they ask you for a coffee like this, like this, like this. I just didn't understand. So instead of them repeating it 10 times, I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, good. And then I used to order something that was horrible and I used to throw it away like so many times. But honestly, you live and you learn. I'm just grateful for all these like issues and things I had, because it just took me where I am now, honestly. But it's been bloody hard.
But that's the thing. I mean, you've got to take the harder choices at that point. You know, my mother's my mother and father are both immigrants, and my father's Irish, so he didn't. Well, he kind of had to learn English, I suppose, because he's from Northern Ireland and they don't really speak English there. But my mother, obviously being from France, French Algerian, she like you, she moved to the UK without a word of English, really, just a bit from school, but not much, and had exact same experience as you. But what we used to tell the students living with us, based on her experience, was don't go and hang out with people from your same country. It's going to be so tempting. They're going to invite you out for drinks and da-da-da-da. Don't do it. If you're really serious about learning the language, try and hang out with a mix of people, especially local people. And also she used to advise always to get people to watch the news. She said, if you really want to learn good quality English, listen to the news, because if they speak very what's the word? Not corporate, but like,
But the BBC English.
The BBC English kind of, thing. It's a very formal English, right? And then put subtitles on and stuff like that. It's harder, but it's better. Definitely. You learn quicker, right?
But that's true. I used to also use that trick. And the only thing I used to understand is the weather forecast, because again, there is the degrees and there is the signs. So I was like, okay, that's easy.
But it's good because you have context. So you've got a frame of reference to understand the words, right?
But the news was still like a big struggle for me. I did not understand anything. And I used to put the subtitles. I was like, why even with the subtitles, I don't understand anything? Like, I was like, will I ever actually reach a point where I actually understand a bit of the generic sense of the whole thing? But then eventually, it happened. Maybe 20 years after.
Well, and that's the thing. And then you built a career in sales, and sales is notoriously complex from a communication perspective, because of sales is essentially the art of communication, right? Pushed to the extreme, because you're picking up verbal and non-verbal communication cues from a prospective buyer and all this kind of stuff. So like, why on earth did you go into sales?
So it's very interesting. I had a mentor 10 years ago. He told me, at that time I was in product and everything, he told me, you'll be terrific in sales. You should get into sales. And I literally met him actually on Saturday for lunch, and I told him, thanks to you, I'm actually in sales. And then I was like, yeah, I actually like talking to people. And even if they don't understand me, somehow we understand each other. I like interacting with people, and I like to be front facing. I like to, to have not that I don't know, like the normal 9 to 5 job, but a bit more dynamic. So I So yeah, I want to get into sales. So then literally little by little I start transitioning into sales from product. And I think also was a good transition because again, to be a good salesperson, you need to also know very well product. I also used to be a proxy product owner. So I used to understand the whole technicalities and everything. And it really helped me so much. And then I moved into sales. But then I thought actually, everyone was like, yeah, it's going to be harder now for you, language barrier and everything. I was like, no, I'll make it easier because I'm the first person that makes fun of my accent. I'm the first person that makes fun of my, I don't know, maybe eating pizza every day or type of thing. So like, I think that I can use it as a stronger bond and eventually people will remember me. And that's what happened. Like I still am in contact with people that I sold to them maybe like, I don't know, 6 years ago. I still have them on LinkedIn. They still like and comment my post. And then eventually they came back to me for if maybe they moved jobs and they went into a new company to again purchase the same product but for the new company. Or maybe now actually they're coming back to me to actually ask for hiring help for their team right now. So it's all about building those relationships. And again, my main primary focus was not actually selling, was building the relationship. And then if on the back of that you get the sales, amazing. If you don't get it, whatever, you still got that relationship. And I think
that's 90% of sales. It's relationship
it
building.
is. Yeah. It is. And I think building that relationship really took me to the next level and made me successful in actually, selling those products or services that I was selling. And it's all about that. It actually, it helped me. My accent helped me drastically. I use it as my weapon, my secret weapon.
Well, also, being Italian, you have a biological advantage over every other nation, which is you have an additional form of communication that no one else does.
My hands, you can see now. I feel trapped in this like screen. You see, because I feel like I could give you so much more, Greg, but like I can.
Feel free, step back if you want, and then you can have more. But so it's not a surprise. It's not a surprise you were able to manage because
it's a full body communication.
It is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is why it has to be face-to-face sales, right? It wouldn't work just on the phone or an email.
Although, I mean, I closed my biggest deals on a video call. So
yeah, but video, you see, like if it was email, you'd have to just use a lot of emojis or something.
I use a lot of emojis actually. Yeah, like I'm an emoji queen, and people say they ask me, I was like, "Why are you using so many emojis?" It's like it's expressive. What can you do?
Yeah, because I always get very anxious about how people interpret what I write. Right, so I'm always worried that people might interpret it as in the wrong tone. So
too
just by
rude or too
exactly. So just putting a little smiley face, it lets people know I'm smiling while I'm saying it, and that makes me feel less anxious about it. You know what I mean?
Like, I'm with you on that.
I love emojis.
I even put emojis on the subject line.
Oh really? Yeah.
Everywhere.
Why not? I don't think it's unprofessional. I think it does the job.
100%.
I've sent messages to like massive CEOs of huge companies before, and I don't care. I put them in, and what usually happens is once I do that, it opens the floodgates, and they start sending them to me.
Yes,
and I'm like, I see,
it worked.
yeah. People are waiting to use emojis. Yeah, for sure.
It worked.
Well, look, I can't speak for the whole of the country or for London, but for one, I'm glad that you're here and that you've set up your business here. So, welcome.
Thanks.
But I'm curious then about what you were saying to do with your business. So your recruitment. Actually, no. Before that, really briefly, we should mention something happened on LinkedIn a couple of months ago, right? Right. So explain that. And this is how we came across one another, and then we started talking. So explain that because it's super interesting. What happened?
If you are enjoying this episode and want to support the show, please like, subscribe with notifications turned on, and let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. This lets YouTube know we are doing something right. Back to the show.
Well, apparently I got viral, like really viral, like millions and millions of views on one of my posts. It was a very simple post with a picture of me 10 years ago and a picture that I took literally like a couple of months ago. And just outlining basically my journey from 2013 till 2024. Just people somehow started interacting, start commenting, start reposting. and it went really viral. And on the back of that, of course, I had my account skyrocket. I had a lot of opportunities coming in. Of course, we got to connect, which I'm, very pleased about. Yeah, so my visibility, let's say, increased exponentially. I was really shocked about it because, again, I don't know. I started thinking like, okay, what is special in this post? Like, I was questioning myself, like, honestly. I was like, what is this special in this post? And I think it just, a lot of people resonated with that journey. There's of course a lot of immigrants, not just here in the UK but everywhere, and a lot of people resonated with those everyday struggles. And that's, I think, because it was very relatable, that's what captured people attention. That's why people like interacted and commented. But on the back of that, of course, I got a lot of opportunities, a lot of investment opportunities, for example, for my own business. Of course, a lot of inbounds, a lot of people asking to do business with us. Podcasts, a lot of different podcast opportunities, of course, and something that I could not think about. But one thing also to mention, like my account didn't skyrocket like literally from one day to another one. It might look like an overnight thing, but it's actually not, because I've been always consistent on LinkedIn for many, many years. And so I signed up on LinkedIn in 2012, been posting consistently since beginning of 2020, so over 4 years. And then suddenly, of course, things happen. But I always, I don't know, I always sold on LinkedIn. I always kept in contact with my friends, with my colleagues, with my prospects, with my clients, with everyone. And I always say, for me, I put all my eggs on LinkedIn because LinkedIn is my one and only platform. I gave up also all my other platforms. I still have, I think, an Instagram account, but I don't go from, I haven't been there for like a year or so. I just don't want other distraction, and I just want to put all my eggs in something that is really meaningful for me. And because LinkedIn gave me not only job opportunities, but business, but everything. And I just literally invested a lot, especially since starting my own business. So yeah, it's been quite of a thing. I did not expect it, Greg. Like, I was shocked. And every time you would see that the likes, that the impression would double in, like, I don't know, matter of hours or sometimes of minutes. And I was like, what is happening? Like, what is that? My boyfriend told me, he's like, before posting that post, he's like, and I prepared that post in like literally 10 minutes, like literally. In that morning, I was like, yeah, I feel like posting this. My boyfriend's like, yeah, this post will go viral. Just wait for it. I was like, what are you talking about? Why? You're always too overconfident on these things. This is not happening. He's like, yeah, wait and see. And then I was like, whoa, hold on. Yes, apparently it's happening. So yeah, that has been quite a thing.
Quite a journey, yeah. And it's interesting you said, so part of the reason why you think it did as well as it did is just because it's relatable. Is that the main reason you think?
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, a lot of other people went through so much more than me. I've went through a lot of bad stuff, but I also didn't go through so many other bad stuff like other people have struggled in life, So I'm also conscious that I've been privileged in a lot of different situations, a lot of different things, but still I went through a lot of crap. And a lot of people related to that. A lot of people have faced the same struggle. A lot of people face the same rejections.
Everyone's lives are difficult. Like that's a universal thing. Like, not, life isn't easy for, at least for most people, So yeah, and I think I think you're right. That's probably why it did as well as it did. And also on a platform like LinkedIn, it's very rare that you actually find posts that are relatable, to be honest, because either someone's trying to sell you some shit, or they are only talking about the great stuff that's happening. And so whenever people are a little bit more authentic and sort of say it how it is, it tends to resonate.
And I think that for me, what worked for me on LinkedIn is that the authenticity, like, I don't know, not faking it, or not like, how I made 200K last month or something like that. Like, this is all BS, honestly. To make money is always hard. Don't let other people fool you. Don't let those gurus fool you. Like, it's hard. And Greg, I mean, we've been talking that, I think, also in our past chats. It's hard. Everything is hard in life. You need to pick your heart, but also you need to show how, like, things really are, and not sugarcoat things. Like, I mean, if you want to achieve more, you need to give more, put more time, go through those hardships, like crying and like, and for me, and hasn't like, I came where I am now, like not working a 9 to 5 as well. Like, I mean, I've been working. Yesterday was bank holiday. For me, it was a normal working day. Like, it's life. You need to work hard, and there are a lot of people out there like working really hard. So it's not just me. It's not just you, because I know also you, Greg, work very hard. There's a lot of people out there. There's no secret recipe, and I think being that relatable help. And of course, not just copy and paste what other people are saying, or like really also showing a lot of like my past experiences. I talk a lot about my bad managers. I had a lot of bad experiences, but I flipped them in a way that, and I have a backlog of ideas, you can imagine, about stories, and some stories maybe I cannot share them as well because they're a bit too heavy. But this gave me a whole content for LinkedIn. And all these bad stories, everything, it just, I think that it make, again, people relate that this is not something that they're only going through, but there are a lot of people that are going through that, and eventually there is a silver lining where you can really come out of that situation. And just people just want to hear that. They just need to hear a bit of hope, and that's what can help other people. Yeah, that's pretty much my strategy, honestly. There's no strategy, basically. It's just being yourself. That's the best strategy you can use.
I think, well, yeah, it works. So I often tell people that, but I also put a little bit of a caveat with that, which is it only works if you're a nice person. Because if
you're not, then you need to fake it.
Right, yeah. So be yourself as long as you're good. Otherwise, don't be yourself.
That's a good strategy.
Because
or learn to be something different.
Yeah, because I see so many people say, "Oh, this authenticity thing, it's a load of bullshit. I tried being authentic on my posts and it didn't work." And I'm like, "Yeah, because you're an arsehole. So it's not you being authentic isn't going to help you, man." Like,
but I see a lot of bad posts, or like a lot of we see also, especially that we both are in sales, Greg. Like you see all these people just trashing salespeople.
Right.
Because maybe you receive a cold call. Okay, maybe you actually 10 years ago you were the person actually doing cold calls.
Yeah.
Or if you're starting your own business, probably you'll actually need to do that cold call to other business. Then see how it feels there when you receive that rejection, or where you see that F off from the other person on the other side.
Well, it's like they say, right? Opinions
never
are like...
trust salespeople.
Never trust salespeople, yeah.
You'll be one day, for sure.
Yeah, well, if you're a business owner, yeah, undoubtedly. Yeah, for sure. And you need to be. But it's like they always say about opinions, right? Opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's got them, and they're usually full of shit. So, yeah. Yeah, and LinkedIn is no exception there. It's a bit of a nightmare. But I wanted to ask you as well about, and look, that's super cool, and I'm so happy for you. And I was really, and that posted out to me for the same reason I'm sure it did for most people. That as well, that story of immigrants. Like I mentioned, my parents are immigrants. We are a country founded on immigration, one way or another, as are all countries, by the way, which is just worth pointing out. Like, no one is from where they originally were from. Like, there's maybe one little part of Africa where those same people have been there for tens of thousands of years. But apart
it's
from
cool
that,
they told us everyone comes from Mesopotamia somehow.
Right,
I don't
exactly.
know.
Yeah. That's it. But there's only one place in the world. But otherwise, we're all from immigrants. Yeah, and I think that's why it resonated with me, especially. It reminded me of that story that I've heard time and time again. And I've got a lot of love for all people from around the world anyway. But anyway, but I wanted to ask as well. So you mentioned about the business that you run now, Recruitment, specializing specifically for startups, and you explaining why that area specifically. But I'm curious to know, because I had a great chat with someone recently who's going to be on the podcast soon, who's the founder of a psychometric testing platform, but specifically for startup founders, which is super interesting. And we talked about why that's important and why the psychometric tests that already exist are useless for measuring what you need to be effective, an effective startup founder or founding team member. The skill set's very different. So I'm curious to know, from your perspective, what are some of the differences in what you're looking for when you're hiring someone in a startup versus a more traditional corporate role? What are those attributes and skill sets?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. So I never thought about the exact skills, because sometimes, I mean, I've been working with startup and startup founder for such a long time before I even started my own company, that like you kind of know it. Now you know it. There is that gut
It's like
feeling, and
instinctive.
yeah, you just know. You just know if that person is right. I think number one is the hunger. You need to have
Right.
someone that has hunger, grow, but also to, I should say, I don't want to say in that word, but like to really go through a lot of crap. Let's put it
Right.
that way.
So
At
be
the
resilient,
beginning.
I guess.
Yes, extremely resilient, because I mean, you're going to be joining an environment where processes are not there, where things are broken, where things are not built at all. So you need to somehow clean up the whole mess and somehow build processes yourself. Wherever you are the intern, wherever you are the CFO, there is all execution. There's no just managing, there's no just high level, there is only pure execution, and that can be really painful. Like the whole uncertainty, being familiar with the uncertainty, being okay with it, but also the understanding that most of the time if you join a startup you need to put extra hours. It's not a 9 to 5 job. Every time I work in a startup, I never had that 9 to 5. I remember, especially when I was in sales, I used to work the whole Saturday, because again, some clients maybe, and Sunday as well, sometimes some clients were based in
They were
different
great times
geographies.
to get a hold of people
It's
outside of
amazing,
regular hours. Yeah.
actually. It's amazing, and you can get so much work done. And at the end of the day, also, if you work in sales, you work on commission, so it's just work on your favor to just get more job done, because eventually, just you're gonna be rewarded for that, with proper commission. So really understanding that, again, the uncertainty, the put in the extra time, and really the flexibility in mindset, and understanding that the job that you're going to be doing perhaps might be completely different from what is on the JD now, and that your role would change so much in the next months that perhaps you don't even know how. That maybe you start as a, I don't know, ops executive, but maybe you're going to be doing I don't know, a head of marketing one day, type of thing. So it's painful, but again, we know that the growth is also exponential. And that growth that you have in a startup is perhaps 5 years in a corporate. 1 year in a startup is 5 years in a corporate. Like I call it as the dog days. It's completely different. So yes, you need to put a lot of effort, but also the potential and reward is also greater than other jobs. So that's what I see. Then there are a lot of different nuances that also I look at. Like most of the time, of course, if you work for a startup, a lot of people have other like side gigs and freelance jobs. I don't think, maybe for some startup, for some others maybe it might work, but for a lot of startups, having those side gigs or the other freelance jobs are not maybe like a right fit, because again, it's not a 9 to 5 job. So it's not that you clock in and clock out. You just need to put your all effort. And if you have another side gig, perhaps your mind is not focused completely on that, and maybe that might not be the opportunity. But some founders also accept that, so it really depends. But yeah, it's not asking, what is the working hours, because again, that would be a very blurry line. So having that really adjustable mindset, especially, it depends of course on what stage of the startup, so everything is different. But if you're part of, if you're employee number 5 of a startup, is very different from being employee number 50 of a startup, because maybe in that case that startup is already like maybe like a scale up. So it really depends. Every stage has different needs and different skills needed, and perhaps that employee number 5 is not actually the right employee number 50. And maybe sometimes I've seen that a lot of times, where the company overgrown the employee sometimes,
Yeah.
and that employee is not anymore the right person for that role and that company and that
It happens
department.
a lot. It happens a lot.
And you need to have a very clear conversation at that point.
Yeah. And it's happened
Say,
to me.
okay.
It's happened to me plenty of times, and people that I know. Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts and opinions on that, which maybe we can get into in a bit. But because I think there's ways to prevent that from occurring in some ways. But yeah, but that's super interesting. It's interesting as well because of what you mentioned there. I can just imagine those that are listening who are maybe in the sort of health and well-being space are probably crying a little bit about what you said. right? Especially when it relates into work-life balance, because there's this constant rhetoric online talking about find a good work, don't do more than you're asked to do, da, 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 da. And it's like, while I agree to an extent, it depends on what your ambitions are, right? I mean, if you've got a terrible, shitty boss and a company that's not going to give you any opportunities beyond what you have, then okay, maybe start looking for another job and just do your hours and go home. But if there's, if it's an exciting startup with great opportunities, you've got a lot you can learn from. You're going to take out as much as you put in at the end of the day, right? So, so I'm just preempting any comments people might leave on on this episode.
It's a difficult topic, and it's a very controversial one.
It is, but it's true. I mean, it's like founders themselves talking, like you were talking. You work evenings, you work bank holidays, you work weekends. Like, so do I. But then I also have to try and find a balance with my family and my partner and things like that. And there is no secret. It's not. It is. Everyone, I think, has to just do what works for them. But to start saying don't work evenings, don't work, who the fuck are you to tell me what to do? I'm sorry, but no. And also, have you ever created a startup before? No. Okay, then shut up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so there's a little bit of, I get it's probably good intentions, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? So
I completely agree with you, Greg. I think if you want more from life, you need to put more effort. And also, so there are different points that I always take into account. So for me, if you're loving what you do, then you somehow create your work-life balance. I feel usually most of the cases, maybe not every case, but you burn out also because you're not truly enjoying what you're doing. And you're not really enjoying maybe also the relationship that you have with your boss or something. So something is broken on that side. And yes, you need to fix it. But if you're enjoying what you're doing, then it doesn't feel like a job, doesn't feel like you're working. It feels like you're doing something that you truly love, and then becomes your hobby somehow. So I feel you need to create your own work-life balance. And doesn't mean that it can be your 8 hours, can be your 6 hours, can be your 12 hours. You need to figure out what is good for you. And yes, you need to sacrifice. It's completely normal, but also there are a lot of different phases of life. So you need to understand what is crunch time. You need to behave like it's crunch time, and you need to just put your whole self. But then eventually the bigger is the team, the bigger is your company. Eventually, of course, you might be less in the execution, you might be a bit less. And then, of course, I think you can also dedicate a bit more time on other part of your life. But when it's crunch time, it's crunch time. And as a founder, I also believe you'll never do like a 9 to 5. I don't think will ever exist like a 9 to 5 founder. Even if it's, I don't know, maybe 1 hour on that Sunday morning that you have to dedicate, it will still be that 1 hour on Sunday morning and that we can work. Then it depends
or you're checking
your
emails or your Slack or whatever. Right? There's always something.
Yeah, there is always something. You can never completely, I think, switch off.
But you see these founders who exit, for millions and millions, and they could just stop work forever, and they don't. Most choose to start a new business. What does that tell you? It means they've got more to offer.
Because you don't do it for the money also.
Exactly. You can't, not in this business. At least not, Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Because also you don't do it for the money. You do it because you like building something, I think.
Right, the challenge.
You like solving problems.
Right.
And I think that's the beauty of it. But honestly, again, there's no great output if you don't put a huge input. It's very easy. It's math for me. It's, and I think people need to understand that. Yeah. And if you're going towards burnout, okay, then question yourself. Are you really doing something that you love, or maybe not? And there is all that quiet quitting. I've seen in my career so many times people keep complaining about their jobs, but doing nothing to change the situation. And that's, for me, I always tell them, stop complaining. Don't tell me anything, because you're just complaining. You're not fixing the problem. If you're really unhappy with your job, then get out and get a different job.
I find
doesn't mean that you.
Yeah, I find that to be an irritating character trait in general, not just about work, but just in general. When people I've cut out friends from my life, for example, that when I would catch up with them on the phone, all they would do is complain, and about their life, about this and about that, and I'd be like, what about this? What about that? What about? And every time it'd be, oh no, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't. I'm like, do you know what, dude? Like every time I speak to you, you just get me down. Like I'm done. Like because of it's the same problems from a year ago, and you've got the solutions right in front of you. I just don't have time for that way of thinking. It's just not productive. I don't get it. You know, we're in control of our own destinies. Yes, there are outside forces to a degree. There are some things that are outside of our control, but focus on what you can control. Do something about it. And for the things that aren't in your control, there's no point worrying about it because they're not in your fucking control. So you know what I mean? It's like it's actually very simple when you step back. But I would also add one other thing similar to like what I added when you were saying about like being authentic online. I added a kind of caveat from my perspective. There was one thing you said about like having fun, enjoying what we do. I think that's talked about a lot too, right? Do something about it if you're not enjoying it. But I would kind of put, in brackets that you're not expected to always enjoy what you do either.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Because actually work is still work.
Yes.
And there are going to be many parts of your job you don't enjoy. And no one owes you anything for you to enjoy every part of your job, especially early on in your working life. You're going to have many jobs that you don't enjoy. But the way to look at it is, well, what am I getting out of it? Again, well, you're developing skills, probably ones you're not even aware of. It's going to be, and usually the harder something is to do, the more you're getting out of it, actually, right? Going back to like the way you learn English, for example, you chose the harder way to do it, or the more uncomfortable way because it was the better result. Like, so it's a similar thing. It's like I don't enjoy every part of being a founder. Like a lot of it sucks. Like, I do not want to have to sit there going through invoices and doing financial projections and like that's my least favorite thing. These are the bits I enjoy the most. Speaking to people, coming up with crazy ideas, putting together projects, like that's the bit I enjoy. Like 80% of it is shit, but it's about the overall thing, right? Putting it in perspective. And I think that's the thing that people forget. It's like, well, 90% of my job, 80% of my job is shit. That's too much. I should quit. I should find something else to do. No. What, are you crazy? Like, if that 10% is awesome, like, you know what I mean? Decide to have fun. It's not that difficult, But don't put up with a terrible boss, or don't put up with being treated like crap. But at the same time, be realistic. Work is work for a reason. There's a reason you get paid for it, right? If it was awesome fun, then everyone would just volunteer.
Honestly, you open like a very wide gate from my side, because I absolutely agree with you. And I think there is one thing I always remember. So there is this like quote on LinkedIn or something that say, the company is like employee stomachs feel on Sunday night about their, I don't know, starting their work on Monday or something like that. It's complete BS. Like, I'm sure you sometimes you felt like, oh my god, tomorrow, I feel like I don't know, I don't feel excited to start work. It's normal to have that feeling. It's very normal. You can have a whole peak in life and being always happy and always joyful and loving 100% what you're doing. Like, you'll have, as you rightly say, invoices, the whole finance thing, like admin. Who loves doing admin? No one loves doing admin. But it's part of the job. So okay, like, I'll suck it up and just get it done. Like, it's just like, I feel like people have sometimes the understanding of being happy, like, as you rightly say, having everything roses and flowers and everything being so perfect. But the reality is very different. As you rightly say, if there is that 10% of that job that you enjoy, that it's painful, but it's giving you growth, because maybe actually the job that you're doing completely sucks, but maybe you have the really good manager that you can learn a lot from that person. So okay, that's amazing. Like, but I feel sometimes people are very easy to quit, but it's harder to stay sometimes. It's really harder to stay. It's completely right.
I think there's also something to be said for, because we're approaching this from the perspective of two main perspectives, right? First of all, the startup ecosystem, which is, let's face it, very different from most other industries. And also we're approaching it from the perspective of entrepreneurialism. So the assumption that you want to learn and develop and grow and go in through your career ladder. let's be honest, the vast majority of the workforce are in industries that don't have the same variety and diversity of things to learn, skills and whatever else. Most jobs are a grind. They are 9 to 5 doing the same thing repetitively. And most people don't necessarily have the ambitions that we do when it comes to wanting to run their own business, be an entrepreneur. And so they don't have that desire to find the people that they can learn from and this, that, and the other. They just want a job that pays them well. They can go, they can do, they can come home, they can pay the bills, and that they're treated with respect and decency, right? And so I think what we're saying still applies, though, because to a degree, because from my father, for example, I learned, because he was in the building trade and he built his own business there. And my very first work was like when I was 5 years old. I was out with a hammer and a paintbrush, and he got me involved.
About child labor.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. For sure. But it was good because it got me into the workforce and understanding the importance of work young. But the really important thing he taught me was pride in your work, right? That was the important thing he taught me. He was like, it's fucking hard, Greg. It's hard work. What I do is hard. But we work hard and we play hard. We have tea breaks, we have cigarette breaks or whatever it was, But the important thing is it's about pride of a job well done, that whether that's for your boss or whether that's for the customer or whoever, it's taking pride in your work, not for anyone else really other than yourself. More importantly, that's what he taught me. So whether it was the building work that I did with him, or then later working in restaurants and bars, in kitchens or in factory work, I've done it all. Like I've done all of the work, and I am happy with any work because I gave it 100%, because that's what my dad taught me. He's like, Greg, I will be proud of you no matter what you do. I remember he told me this once. I don't speak with him anymore. We since my mother and father broke up when I was very young. But I do remember that he taught me a lot about work ethic. For all of his other stuff he wasn't very good at as a father, this was the one thing he was very good at. And he said to me once, he said, Greg, I will be proud of you no matter what you do. He said, you could be a bin man. He's like, I don't care what you do. Every work is to be proud of. But I will only be proud of you if you aim to be the best bin man in your neighborhood, or the best painter and decorator in your neighborhood, or the best banker. Whatever you do, just decide to be the best for no one else but you. And I think that's really important. Really, really important.
It's so beautiful, actually. It's so beautiful. I think that's a very powerful lesson. And I think, is that mission that you have, that drive of I'm doing something for the society, I'm contributing to something, I'm part of a bigger picture, I'm helpful for other people out there. For me, that's what is really important. And, in Italy, we say, actually, I'm not sure if it's part of the constitution now. I'm just having like a bit of a blurry thing, but we say that your job, your work will, how do you translate it actually? Makes the man noble, makes I don't know if that's exact translation. I don't take it for but
I know what you mean. It's noble to contribute to your society.
Yes.
In however form that takes.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. There is no job that is lesser than anyone else's.
Because everything is needed.
Right. Yeah. From cleaning the street to running a bank. If anything, you could argue that maybe cleaning the street is more noble than running a bank. but yeah, absolutely. Work is work, and work is something to be proud of. And I think too many people have turned their nose up at certain things now. And it's easy, I think, especially for us in like I say, in our bubble, in the startup bubble, to forget that, that we are in a bit of a privileged bubble, where we get to work from home, we get to talk about things from this perspective, like growth mindset and this, that, and the other. It's like for 99.9% of the world's population, they are just working a job that needs to just be done. And that's it. And they are easily replaceable. They're not appreciated. They don't get paid very much. And it's like, well, where's their motivation? Like, they don't have flexible hours and can work from home, and you know what I mean. Like, it's like, I think it always, even for us, it has to come from that place of, I want to do a good job for me first. It has to be for us first. We're a bit over, but we should wrap up part one, and then we can carry on from where we picked off. But so yeah, this will be the end of part one. And for anyone listening or watching, the part two will be out in a couple of days on the Wednesday. So tune back in for that. So part one will end now.
Thank you for listening and or watching. Subscribe with notifications turned on to get notified when part 2 comes out. While you wait, please join in the conversation in the comments below.